Putin and Trump, were they Cain and Abel in the Bible? The brothers who became enemies. Act 1. Attention. What if I told you that two of the most powerful men on earth today were once brothers in an ancient story written thousands of years ago? What if the tension between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump isn't just modern politics, but the continuation of the oldest family tragedy in human history? The story of Cain and Abel. Two brothers, one offering, one rejection, one murder that changed everything. But here's what nobody tells you about Cain and Abel. Pause. It was never really about the sacrifice. It was about something much deeper, something that's playing out right now, on the world stage, between two men who seem destined to be either allies or enemies. Picture this: two boys, born into the same world. One learns to work with his hands, building things, creating empires from nothing. The other learns to work with power, controlling systems, mastering the art of survival in a brutal world. One becomes a billionaire real estate mogul in New York City, obsessed with putting his name on everything he builds. The other rises through the ranks of the KGB, learning that in his world, you either dominate or disappear. Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin. On the surface, they couldn't be more different. But dive deeper and you'll find the same ancient pattern, the same jealousy, the same need for recognition, the same question that haunted Cain and Abel. Why was his offering accepted and mine rejected? But I'm getting ahead of myself, because to understand why these two men are modern echoes of Cain and Abel, we need to go back, way back, to a field, to two brothers, to the moment when human civilization learned what jealousy could do. And then, we need to ask ourselves a question nobody wants to answer. Which one is Cain and which one is Abel? Or are they both Cain, taking turns playing Abel? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will change how you see everything happening in the world right now. Act 2. Interest and Desire. 2 o'clock. The biblical foundation. Background shifts subtly to ancient landscape imagery. Let's start with the original story. Genesis, chapter 4. Adam and Eve have been cast out of Eden. They have two sons. Cain, the firstborn, becomes a farmer. Abel, the younger, becomes a shepherd. Now here's where it gets interesting. Both brothers bring offerings to God. Cain brings crops from his harvest, the fruit of his labor, the result of his hard work, his sweat, his effort to make something grow from the cursed ground. Abel brings the firstborn of his flock, the fattest portions, the best he has. And God accepts Abel's offering but rejects Cain's. The question nobody answers. Now, most people read this story and think, well, God just preferred animal sacrifice. But that's not what the text says. The text says God looked with favor on Abel and his offering. God looked at the person first, then the gift. Voice becomes more intimate. So what was different about Abel? What did he have that Cain didn't? The Hebrew word used here is fascinating. It suggests Abel brought his offering with complete sincerity, total humility, genuine worship. Cain, the text is silent on his attitude. He brought something. He went through the motions. But his heart. Pause. Maybe his heart was elsewhere. 3:15. Parallel to Putin. Now let me tell you about a boy born in Leningrad in 1952. Vladimir Putin. His father was a factory worker. His mother survived the siege of Leningrad by eating bread made from sawdust. They lived in a communal apartment with no hot water. Putin grew up surrounded by violence, poverty, and the constant fear of being weak. He learned early, you don't survive by being nice. You survive by being tougher than everyone else. At 15, he walked into the KGB office and asked how to join. They told him, get a degree. Stay out of trouble. Maybe we'll contact you. So he did. Everything by the rules. Everything exactly as instructed. He studied law, stayed out of trouble, joined the KGB at 23. He brought his offering. He worked the ground. He did everything right. And for years, nobody noticed. He was just another KGB officer, stationed in East Germany, watching the Berlin Wall fall, watching the Soviet Union collapse, watching his entire world rejected. Now let me tell you about a boy born in Queens in 1946. Donald Trump. His father was already successful. Fred Trump built affordable housing in Brooklyn and Queens, made millions. Young Donald grew up in a 23-room house in Jamaica Estates. He went to private schools. He had opportunities. But here's what's interesting. Fred Trump was never accepted by Manhattan's elite. He was outer borough, working class roots, not refined enough for the social register. And Donald watched this. Watched his father's success being dismissed by people who inherited their wealth, who didn't build anything but acted superior because of their last names. Donald learned early, it's not enough to be successful. You need to be seen as successful. You need the recognition, the respect, the acceptance. So what did he do? He moved to Manhattan, built Trump Tower, put his name in giant gold letters, demanded attention. He brought his offering, but not quietly, not humbly. He brought it with spotlights and golden escalators and penthouse apartments that screamed, "Look at me. Accept this. Acknowledge what I've built." 545. The rejection. Now here's where the Cain and Abel parallel becomes crystal clear. In 1990, Trump was on the edge of bankruptcy. His casinos were failing. His marriage was collapsing in tabloid headlines. Manhattan's elite who never fully accepted him were now openly mocking him. New York Magazine, The Fall of Donald Trump. Spy Magazine called him a short-fingered vulgarian. The establishment that he'd spent decades trying to impress was rejecting his offering. At the same time, across the world in Russia, Putin was watching his country collapse. The Soviet Union dissolved in 1991. His KGB career meant nothing. His skills were obsolete. His offering of years of loyal service rejected. He ended up driving a taxi to make ends meet. A trained spy, a man who spoke multiple languages, reduced to driving drunks around St. Petersburg. Both men, same moment, same feeling. I did everything right. I brought my offering. Why was it rejected? 7 o'clock. The transformation. But here's what makes this story fascinating. What Cain and Abel teach us isn't just about rejection. It's about what you do after rejection. Genesis 4:6-7 says, "Then the Lord said to Cain, 'Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted?'" God gives Cain a choice, a second chance, a path back. But then comes the warning. But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Sin is crouching, like a predator, waiting. And Cain makes his choice. Genesis 4:8. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. The first murder, brother against brother, all because of jealousy, all because he couldn't handle rejection. Russia is in chaos. Boris Yeltsin is drunk, incompetent, and looking for a successor. Putin, who had worked his way into Yeltsin's inner circle, is appointed prime minister. Then, on December 31, 1999, Yeltsin resigns. Suddenly, Vladimir Putin is acting president of Russia. Pause. The man who'd been rejected, who'd driven taxis, who'd watched his world collapse, was now the most powerful person in Russia. And what did he do? He didn't forgive those who rejected him. He didn't move on gracefully. He methodically destroyed every oligarch who opposed him, sent some to prison, drove others into exile, took control of media, crushed dissent. Within 5 years, Putin had more power than any Russian leader since Stalin. His offering had been rejected, so he took what he wanted by force. 9:15. Trump's rise. Trump announces he's running for president. The same establishment that mocked him in the 90s now laughs even harder. A reality TV star running for president. He has no chance. Every political expert, he won't win. Every major newspaper, he's not serious. His own party leadership, this is a disaster. But Trump understood something they didn't. He'd spent decades being rejected by elites. He knew there were millions of Americans who felt the same way. Rejected, dismissed, told they didn't matter. And he spoke directly to them. They rejected me too. But together, we'll make them accept us. November 8, 2016. Against every prediction, against every expert, against the entire establishment, Trump won. The man who'd been rejected by Manhattan elites was now the most powerful person in the world. New dilemma. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Two men, both rejected, both rose to ultimate power, both carrying the wound of not being accepted. And in 2016, they're about to meet. Putin, who's been in power for 16 years, controlling Russia with an iron fist. Trump, newly elected, unsure of how to wield presidential power. Pause. The question everyone was asking, would they be allies or enemies? Would they be brothers, or would one try to destroy the other? And here's the part that makes this biblical. They're both Cain. Both carrying the same jealousy, both unable to truly accept the other's power, which means one of them would eventually have to be Abel. And we all know what Cain did to Abel. July 2017. Hamburg, Germany. G20 Summit. Trump and Putin meet face to face for the first time. The meeting was supposed to last 30 minutes. It lasted over 2 hours. Nobody knows exactly what was said, except the translators. And they're not talking. But body language experts notice something. Trump looked eager, almost desperate for approval, leaning forward, seeking validation. Putin, relaxed, in control, the older brother who already knows how the world works. This is the Cain and Abel dynamic playing out in real time. Trump wants Putin's respect, wants to be seen as an equal, wants acceptance from someone who understands what it's like to be rejected by the establishment. Putin sees an opportunity, a new American president who craves validation, who might be manipulable. Remember in Genesis, Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go out to the field. The field is where everything happens, away from witnesses, away from God's direct presence, just to brothers. And what happened in that field changed everything. Helsinki, July 2018. Trump and Putin meet again. This time, completely alone except for translators. No aides, no witnesses, no official record. The field. They emerged from that meeting, and Trump did something that shocked even his supporters. In a press conference, standing next to Putin, Trump sided with Russia over his own intelligence agencies. Asked if he believed Russia interfered in the 2016 election, Trump said, "President Putin says it's not Russia. I don't see any reason why it would be." The backlash was immediate. Even Republicans were horrified. Trump later claimed he misspoke, said he meant to say, wouldn't, instead of, would. But the damage was done. The jealousy emerges. But here's what nobody talks about. Putin didn't just want Trump's compliance. He wanted something deeper. Putin had spent 16 years building his image. The strong leader, the strategic genius, the man who restored Russia's glory. And here was Trump. Less experienced, less disciplined, less strategic. But Trump had something Putin desperately wanted. He was President of the United States, the most powerful position in the world, the recognition, the platform, the automatic respect that comes with that office. And Putin, for all his power in Russia, would never have that. He could never be elected President of the United States, could never command that global stage, could never have his face carved on Mount Rushmore. Trump had the offering that God accepted, the position Putin could never reach. And jealousy crouched at the door. By 2019, something shifted. Trump started pulling away from Putin. The relationship cooled. The praise stopped. Why? Because Trump realized something. Putin wasn't treating him as an equal. Putin was treating him as a puppet, as the younger brother who needed guidance. And Trump's entire life had been about proving he wasn't beneath anyone. His offering needed to be accepted as equal to Putin's, better than Putin's. Trump started getting tougher on Russia. Sanctions, military aid to Ukraine, expanding NATO, things Putin hated. And Putin, watching this, felt it again, rejection. The one person who seemed to understand him, who seemed like an ally, was now turning away. The wife enters. Here's where the story gets a biblical twist. In some rabbinic interpretations of Cain and Abel, scholars suggest they were fighting over more than just God's acceptance. They were fighting over a woman. Some traditions say they were both supposed to marry Abel's twin sister. Now, I'm not saying there's a literal woman in the Trump-Putin story, but there's definitely a third party. They're both trying to possess Ukraine. For Putin, Ukraine isn't just a country. It's the birthplace of Russian civilization. Kiev was the capital of Kievan Rus. Losing Ukraine to Western influence is like losing part of Russia's soul. For Trump, Ukraine became a political tool. He tried to pressure Ukraine's president to investigate Biden, got impeached for it. Both men saw Ukraine as something they could use, something they could control, something they were entitled to. Neither one saw Ukraine as an independent nation, with its own right to choose. Sound familiar? Cain and Abel weren't just fighting about sacrifices. They were fighting about who had the right to possess, to control, to dominate. Everything falls. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. And this is where the story gets really uncomfortable. What if they're both Cain? What if there is no Abel in this story? Pause. Let it sink in. Think about it. Abel was innocent. Abel brought his offering in pure faith. Abel never fought back. Abel was murdered because he was good. Neither Trump nor Putin fits that description. They're both Cains, both jealous, both violent in their own ways, both unable to accept rejection, both willing to destroy rather than submit. Which means the real question isn't, which one is Cain? The real question is, who's Abel? Who's the innocent one being destroyed while these two modern Cains fight for dominance? And the answer is all of us. The realization, the civilians in Ukraine, the American voters being manipulated, the Russian citizens imprisoned for dissent, the families torn apart by political division. We're Abel, caught between two brothers who refuse to control their jealousy. Voice becomes emotional. The Cain and Abel story isn't just about two brothers. It's about what unchecked jealousy does to everyone around it. After Cain kills Abel, God asks him, "Where is your brother?" And Cain replies, "Am I my brother's keeper?" That question echoes through history. Are we responsible for each other, or is it every person for themselves? Trump and Putin both answer the same way Cain did. Not my problem. Trump, America first, everyone else figure it out. Putin, Russian interests above all, everyone else is expendable. And while they fight, Abel bleeds in the field. Act 3. Action and Resolution. The final strike, February the 24th, 2022. Putin invades Ukraine. Full-scale military operation. Tanks rolling toward Kiev. Missiles striking civilian targets. The largest land war in Europe since World War II. And the world holds its breath, waiting to see, what will Trump say? Because Trump, who'd praised Putin for years, who'd been impeached for withholding aid to Ukraine, who'd questioned NATO's value, Trump's response would tell us everything about which brother he really is. The moment of truth, February the 26th, 2022. Trump appears on Fox News. The question everyone wanted answered: would he condemn Putin? Would he finally choose a side clearly? And Trump said, "This is genius. Putin declares a big portion of Ukraine as independent. Oh, that's wonderful. He's going to go in and be a peacekeeper. We could use that on our southern border. Genius. Wonderful." He called the invasion genius and wonderful. While cities burned, while civilians fled, while children died in bomb shelters. And in that moment, we saw which brother he was. Not Abel. Never Abel. The curse of Cain. Remember what happened after Cain killed Abel. Genesis 4:10-12. The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." The curse of Cain. Everything you touch will fail. You'll wander, never finding peace, never finding home, never finding acceptance. Putin's curse. Look at Putin now. April 2024. The invasion he thought would take 3 days has lasted over 2 years. Russia's economy is sanctioned, isolated. Over 300,000 Russian soldiers dead. His genius plan exposed as catastrophic miscalculation. And more than that, he's isolated, paranoid. Can't travel to most countries without risk of arrest. Sits at the end of absurdly long tables, because he's terrified of being assassinated. He killed Abel, metaphorically, literally, repeatedly. And now he wanders the earth, powerful but restless, controlling but never at peace. The curse of Cain. Trump's curse. And Trump lost the 2020 election, refused to accept it, became the first president to be impeached twice, indicted on multiple charges, banned from social media platforms, his business empire under investigation, his own party divided on whether to support him, his children entangled in legal issues, everything he built to gain acceptance crumbling. The recognition he craved now comes with infamy instead of respect. He reached the pinnacle, President of the United States, and it still wasn't enough. Still didn't bring the acceptance he desperately wanted. Voice becomes reflective. The curse of Cain. You will be a restless wanderer. Trump can't stop, can't retire, can't find peace. Must keep fighting, keep building, keep demanding recognition. Restless, wandering, never satisfied. The mark of Cain. But here's where the story gets interesting again. After cursing Cain, God does something unexpected. Genesis 4:15. But the Lord said to him, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. God protects Cain, even after everything. Gives him a mark so others won't kill him. Why? Because the cycle of violence has to stop somewhere. If someone kills Cain to avenge Abel, then someone else will want to avenge Cain, and on forever. Voice becomes thoughtful.
Someone has to survive to learn the lesson, to carry the warning. This is what jealousy does. This is what rejection can become. This is where unchecked ambition leads. The uncomfortable truth. And here's the uncomfortable truth we need to face. We need both Trump and Putin to survive. Not because they deserve it. Not because we condone what they've done. But because they're teaching us something crucial about human nature. Every person watching this has felt rejected at some point. Has felt like their offering wasn't accepted. Has felt jealous of someone else's success. The question is, what do we do with those feelings? Do we become Cain? Do we let jealousy turn into violence, metaphorical or literal? Or do we learn to accept that sometimes our offerings aren't accepted, and that's okay? The deeper lesson. Here's what the Cain and Abel story is really about. It's not about what you offer. It's about who you are when you offer it. God didn't reject Cain's sacrifice because crops are inferior to livestock. God rejected it because Cain's heart wasn't right. He was going through the motions, doing what was expected, but not truly giving of himself. Abel gave his best, the firstborn of his flock, the fattest portions. He held nothing back. And more than that, Abel gave with humility. He didn't demand recognition, didn't need his name in gold letters, didn't need the world to acknowledge his greatness. He simply gave and trusted that it was enough. Applying to our lives, and you watching this right now, let me ask you something. When you bring your offering, whatever that means for you, are you bringing it like Cain or like Abel? Are you working hard but resenting that others get more recognition? Are you giving your time, your energy, your talents, but keeping score of who notices? Are you doing good things but angry when you don't get credit? That's Cain's trap. And it's so easy to fall into. Because here's the truth. Most of the time, your offering won't be accepted the way you want it to be. Most of the time, someone else will get the promotion you deserved. Someone else will get the credit for your idea. Someone else will be celebrated while you're ignored. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can become Cain, jealous, bitter, violent in your thoughts if not your actions, convinced the system is rigged against you. Or you can remember that the value of your offering isn't determined by whether others accept it. Abel didn't give his sacrifice to get something back. He gave it because giving was right, because doing your best matters regardless of recognition. And yes, Cain killed him for it. Yes, being Abel can be dangerous in a world full of Cains. But here's what the story teaches. Abel's blood cried out from the ground. His story survived. His name is remembered. His example endures. Cain got what he thought he wanted, Abel gone, no competition, and he was miserable, cursed, wandering, never finding peace. Abel lost his life, but he kept his soul. Back to Trump and Putin. So what about Trump and Putin? What's their ending? The story isn't over yet. They're both still alive. Both still pursuing power. Both still carrying that jealousy, that need for recognition. But we can already see how it's destroying them. Putin, isolated and paranoid, ruling through.